All right, I guess we're live and such, and so forth and whatnot. Uh-oh. What? Okay.
All right, I guess we're live.
Working. Okay, that's all I wanted to know. It's working. The old popping up of the chat. Oh. Can't see it on the screen. Interesting. I have to resize the window or something. Make that smaller. That'll work. And then pop out the chat. All right, so I did that. Oh, 2 jobs accomplished. And comments maybe. So just basically on the subject of who's more rude, and it's just this, this is what people waste time on. I think it's just rational for me as somebody who makes videos to have some sort of standard, in the sense that, yes, I'm not going to feel obligated to respond to people who can't play by civil rules. All right. I mean, I'm not shitting in your videos again. So, you want to play fair. Okay, then I'll make shit comments on your videos. So this guy at least makes videos, so I can go make shit comments on his videos. He's a vegan, so I can make the easy and fun shit comments like, what are you, clueless? It's about yum yum. You ever heard of yum yum, retard? Yeah, it's about yum yum. I can make retarded comments. They don't have nothing to do with the subject, essentially, and just to kind of a distraction from the real subject, and see how you enjoy that. Because you're not answering. I have question videos. So on the channel page, there's playlists and some of the overview videos that just explain the theory, generally speaking. And then there's question videos that have some simple questions that need to be answered, foundational experiments of your silly theories. And so why don't you just answer those questions? That if you want to defeat me in an argument, you want to show how I'm wrong, well, why don't you answer one of those questions? But instead, you just vaguely reference some kind of notion that you've made an argument somewhere. There's no arguments here. Nothing that I haven't countered. So you're despicable putzes. Maybe I should just post on your video. I've already explained it to you. I could just lie on your video. I've already explained to you, what you need it written in bronze or something? You failed. I already beat you in the argument. I could just write that on your video. I've already defeated your argument, even though I haven't. So, and you'd accept that. You'd accept that comment. Fuck, you would. All right. So anyway, so yeah, we'll read this crap. Should be pretty good clue. Okay, that this guy. So again, this guy. I should even tolerate that nonsense. I'll write that on your video. This guy, I'll call you this guy, is a douche. How's that? I'll just write that. A stupid douche. He needs his mommy to comfort him. He can't take reality. All right, it's talking about has nothing to do with science or reality. Okay, should be pretty good clue that this guy is talking about. So this is what he wrote. Should be a pretty good clue. So he's talking about people being clueless, and he writes an inarticulate sentence that what this guy is talking about has nothing to do with science and reality. So what should be the pretty good clue? What? So the other guy points out that there's trolls, and I shouldn't talk to the trolls. Okay. He says, just lay down the law and you won't respond to rude comments. And this guy responds, should be a pretty good clue that what this guy is talking about has nothing to do with science or reality. The fact that there's trolls means I'm wrong. So I'll just write that in your comments on your vegan subject. Well, obviously, a lot of people think you're wrong, so you must be wrong because most people eat meat, so therefore you're wrong. Should I make those kind of idiotic arguments? That should be a clue that you're an idiot, is that you're protesting with a bunch of losers. You all look like fat losers. Why would I want to be a vegan if you all look like fat losers? Stupid. He also flips out at comments. No, I respond to them in kind. You treat me like shit, I'll treat you like shit. That aren't rude at all. Yeah, by your definition, and your definition is retarded. You think you weren't rude here. You call me this guy, claim that there's some clue that I don't know science and reality, even though I spent 7 years studying it. So fuck you in the ass till dead, cunt. I certainly know a hell of a lot more than you. And who are you to judge, actually? What have you done for the last 7 years? Have you watched all of Professor Lewin's lectures? Have you watched the lectures at MIT? Have you watched the lectures at Stanford? Have you done any of that? You fucking little weasel. Anyway, he also flips out of comments that aren't rude at all, just simply challenges. Okay, again, notions that these are challenges, not veiled in insults. So show me the comment that wasn't veiled as an insult. Okay, some challenge that he would be able to answer if he had a coherent, realistic worldview. So he's claiming I haven't answered them when I have, and I've answered them very coherently and completely. So you're just such a lying piece of scum. Why don't you answer my questions, fuckface? If you know so much, if you know your physics is right, why can't you answer my simple fucking questions? All right. So then Mindless Marbles, who is just a known troll, okay, responds. Hi, love. I really don't do that love bullshit. What is the app you have there? Cheese? No, Cheese is too fucking slow. I mean, really, you can't do it. I tried Cheese, and I said, well, you know, everything was, I mean, I'm a little ghosty in this, but not nearly as ghosty as in Cheese. Anyway, there are instances where he is rude to others when the other person is not rude. So again, that's just your interpretation. So, but whatever. And on top of that, there are instances where he completely misrepresents what other people say. So another pile of crap. Generally speaking, I try to get your comments correct. It is physics for, you know, just to say, you know, it's not exactly the easiest subject to write, you know, sentences that are descriptive enough to know exactly what part of something you're describing. So, but go ahead, be a little putsy fucking asshole about it. Fine. Play your little silly game. So he gives the example of a time code on a video. Clearly, it won't be what he claims it is. I don't know if the time code is actually of that video. Let's see if it'll work. Might do the wrong video. This distance is, when we do know this distance, and we know exactly how much, if it was light hitting the photon, we know exactly how much light hit it, and the photon wouldn't be able to say, I got hit by twice as much light. It wouldn't be able to change the rules and say, I got hit by twice as much light. So I was talking about gravity and the fact that the photon, why do we have a different rule for photons? How come photons, all of a sudden the inverse square law doesn't apply? How come for photons, they pretend to be in the gravity twice as long when by time, the amount of time they were in the gravity is a known factor. We know how much light they would have gotten hit by if it was light coming off the planet. We know exactly how much light they would have got hit by. They wouldn't got hit by twice as much light. So how they get hit by twice as much gravity? Yeah, that's right. It's a complete pile of shit. The force of gravity is being extruded by the sun, whatever you want to call that force, whatever you think it is. It's emanating from the sun at exactly the same rate, okay, as the light coming off the sun. It's the same exact thing, essentially. One is visible and one is invisible, but it's radiating it, essentially. And so how come we think that, you know, how come we think if I move a photon across the sun, you know, the sun's over here and the photon moves across, that somehow that photon's going to get hit by twice as much light than an electron doing the same thing? Yeah, bullshit. For the same amount of exposure time. So again, again, so this is supposed to be an example of me mistreating somebody. Where's the example? Even though, and I'm going twice as fast. How is that possible? It's not possible. It's idiotic. And then the other catch. So first, to get rid of the inverse square law applying to a photon, and then this is the time dilation argument. And this is ludicrous. So go waste our time posting a time code to a point where I'm explaining a perfectly valid point that these idiots don't understand. They don't understand that gravity. Okay, let's say this is a gravitational body. What's happening on a gravitational body, especially a massive one, is every bit of matter on the surface is moving towards the center, and every piece of matter below that is moving towards the center, and every piece below that is moving towards the center, and they're all under pressure, and the pressure is from the outside in. So all these things are under high pressure, pushing down. They're all pushing down towards the center. They're all accelerating towards the center. The gravity is emanating from every point that there's matter moving towards the center. So every time matter moves towards the center, it creates gravity. So yeah, there's no gravity that goes in one little line between the earth and the sun. The sun is making gravity towards the earth. It's making gravity over here. It's making gravity over there. It's making gravity equally in all those directions. Because these idiots can't understand that simple concept, they're claiming I misrepresented something. No, you're too stupid. You don't understand physics, asshole. Let's play. Let's see. I mean, there's no, how much of this am I supposed to play before we get to your
So the second catch is all of a sudden now the inverse square law doesn't apply. And so not only is it in the gravity twice as long, they're saying that the force of the gravity isn't getting 4 times weaker every half the distance. So there's no 1 over r squared rule. So the 1 over r squared rule applies.
I mean, this is hilarious. This is my question video, right? I don't see the title on the video. No, I guess it was a live room video. Okay. But clearly, this is one of my questions. I'm asking. One of the question videos is, why? Why do you think this is the truth? Why do you think these special rules exist for photons that don't exist for electrons or protons or any other atomic structure? Just photons. Photons are immune to the inverse square law. Why? Is there any rational reason to believe that they should be immune? No. So anyway, this was a waste. Thanks for wasting my time with a perfectly rational, just showing me one of my great, my perfectly decent responses and pointing out the flaws in their theory. Stephen Coda, who is a supporter of him, or whatever, points, again, I've told you how irrelevant that is to me. I have no interest in supporters or detractors who don't make arguments. So if you can't make arguments, don't bother supporting. Okay, if you can't say something like, yes, I understand physics because I have some authority here. I've studied, or I was an electrician, or I was something. Unless you've got something to back up your opinion, there's no point in you saying, I agree with Gary, when, you're a fucking idiot. You don't know anything about physics. What good does that do me? It doesn't mean anything to me. Points out that some other theories of gravity, there's no other theories, with a finite speed of gravity, have the problem that the Earth would be attracted to where the sun used to be. So again, this is a silly notion. There's no theory of gravity that doesn't have the inverse square law. That could be a serious theory. And clearly, it's kind of just known fact that gravity is created. It goes in all directions. That's why things are spherical. Things are shaped spherical because the gravity has forced them to be spherical. And the energy is evenly distributed around the sphere. It's all pushing in. Duh. It's all accelerating towards the center. So again, it wouldn't, this whole speed of doesn't really matter. Can't possibly make a difference. If I'm moving around this circumference and the motion of the matter from this surface, the force pushing things towards the center is what's creating the gravity. That's absorbing the energy going this way. Clearly, I'm going to have the impact of that no matter where you go on this circle. That impact is going to be real in that sense. It's not going to make any difference where I am on the circle. All right. It's okay. So again, I've already answered this point, and he's going to just repeat it, even though I've already answered it. Some other theories of gravity. Again, why should I care about other theories of gravity? What I'm contrasting is me against conventional physics. So conventional physics is bent space. I don't know whether you've heard of Einstein, But Einstein owns the subject of gravity for conventional physics. They don't have any other theory of gravity. Idiot, fuckhead. Anyway, finite speed would have a problem that the Earth would be attracted to where the sun used to be. It's just stupid. To where the sun used to be, by which, what? Catastrophic, considering the Earth and the sun are traveling through the galaxy at minus 230 kilometers per second. So now the claim is that somehow because the sun is moving and the Earth is moving exactly the same direction, so the sun and the Earth are moving exactly the same. So the sun isn't moving away from the Earth. They don't have unsimilar speeds in the galaxy. They're moving exactly the same. The Earth is doing this at the same time this is moving, but the Earth already has this speed. So there's no conflict here whatsoever. The two bullets are moving the same speed in this direction. They're moving different speeds in this direction, but not different speeds in this direction. And that's the only part that matters for that argument. So the speed through the galaxy doesn't matter because they're moving at exactly the same speed, just as the moon is moving exactly the same speed as the Earth. The moon is spiraling around the Earth at the same time the Earth is going around the sun. The moon doesn't have to catch up because the moon is already moving that way at exactly the same speed. So another bullshit. They use the word relativity, and apparently they don't understand relative motion at all. Okay, it also creates the issue with angular momentum. So again, there is no issue. More crap. I've already answered this question now 3 times or whatever it is. Just a crap argument. Why don't you answer the questions I've posted? Now, what is his response? Question mark. He goes on to talk about how his shadow, and again, I've never called it my shadow. I've explained it as an absorption over and over and over again. I've emphasized the word, the force has to be absorbed for there to be an effect. So just ignore that. Just play with this shadow talk, which I have done very little shadow talk, and I've only used it as a simplification, and I've clearly labeled it a simplification. I've always said it's a little more complicated. The reality is a little more complicated. I've always pointed this stuff out. So you're just such a pathetic fucking liar. All right. That his shadow isn't like a back and forth laser beam between the sun and the Earth. Yeah, that's right. The force doesn't act directly. The force merely has to be a composite of energy in a direction. And I've explained that all you have to do is get something on one side of the plane or the other side of the dimension. So I've explained this already, but he wants me to explain it again. Going this way, say twice, would be the same as going this way once, in the amount of direction this way. So all you're doing is adding up how much. Say if something moves this way, the sun moves this way. It has a component towards the Earth. So if the Earth's here and the sun's here, and the sun actually did move this way, there's a component of that movement that's towards the Earth. That's the opposite of away from the Earth, clearly. And the component towards the Earth is all that counts. And that's all you're adding up. So any movement toward the Earth is the same as a movement directly towards the Earth, as long as there's a component. It's just like the rules for charge, the Maxwell equations. It fits completely. That's the way it works. So it's never going to be a direct response force when it comes to big planets. Now, with little electrons, it's a direct force. But that's because it's the polarized force. It's trapped between them. Oh, dumbass. The scale is different. The force that's making gravity is really the electron force. It's a nuclear force. I've said that so many times in these videos. Gravity is a nuclear force. It affects the tiniest bits of the matter, not the big matter. Gravity isn't affecting the Earth. Gravity isn't affecting you. It's affecting your electrons and protons. All right. Now, what is his response? Question mark. He goes on to talk about the shadow isn't a back and forth laser beam between the sun and the Earth, and then proceeds to talk about how the inverse square law as if people don't understand it. Yeah, well, they clearly don't understand, as I just proved by playing the whatever his name is video in the last talk. Clearly he doesn't understand it because he doesn't understand why the magnets are doing what they're doing, because there's an inverse square law force that's creating that. Most people don't understand how light bulbs work. They don't understand how this hand works. So you're telling me they do understand all that? No, they don't. And it needs to be emphasized because it's the most important rule in force that exists, is the inverse square law, and coming up with a rational reason why there is an inverse square law. And the rational reason is because, yes, force is emanating in the form of the rays of force, not waves of force, rays of force. You stupid cunt. All right, let's see. The other day I heard some photons. What? The other day I heard since photons go the speed of light, there's no time for them. And so from their point of view, they reach where they're going instantly. Well, again, they don't have a point of view. So this whole thing is just a retarded conversation. They clearly move at less than instantaneous. So you want to pretend that photons think everything happens instantaneously? Go ahead and think that, but it doesn't. They don't move instantaneously from point A to point B. It takes them a certain amount of time to get there. And the fact that you think they can't tell time, fine. I'm saying if they were capable of perceiving, they would be capable of seeing clock hands move, and they would be able to tell it took them some time to go. It takes twice as long to go one way as it takes to go the other way because the distance is twice as far, and they could figure that out. They could know what 3 times farther away is. They would be able to tell the difference. So all of this is horse fucking shit. Thanks for the contribution. All right. None of that changes anything. So of course it does change everything. And that's a perfectly good rational explanation of why how the inverse square law works. About the fact that the earth has to be attracted to some unique direction, whatever that means. It has to be attracted to a unique direction. No, it doesn't, because it already has its own velocity. So again, this idiot thinks the earth is some stationary object. The sun's moving through the galaxy, and the earth is like a stationary thing that somehow keeps needing to be told, oh no, you have to get attracted to the sun and move with the sun. When no, they're just 2 bullets moving exactly the same speed, and those 2 bullets can rotate around each other. So again, your stupidity, your ignorance, and you're projecting like somehow you understand the subject when no, you're the one that obviously doesn't understand the subject, you dumbass. The earth has to be attracted to some unique direction because that's how Newtonian mechanics work. Well, you know what? How Newtonian mechanics is the inverse square law, you fucking cunt. So don't talk about how there's Newtonian mechanics, because there are no Newtonian mechanics beyond the inverse square law. So go ahead and pretend there are when there fucking goddamn aren't, and you goddamn know it. With or without the square inverse law. So again, I don't know why he says it backwards. Why would you say square inverse law? Why would you do that? You got some problem with the inverse square law. So this obviously is your fucking own little personal psychological problem. Somewhere the inverse square law, played with your anus in some dirty way, and you're going to be upset for the rest of your fucking life. What the fuck is this bullshit? What is the square inverse law? Where did Newton talk about the square inverse law? I mean, you're being obviously, some kind of deluded, kooky truther with your own little wacky, perverse theory that somehow money isn't money, it's debt, or some kind of bullshit. You got your own little truther theory. Okay, I was just sharing a thought that it was intriguing. Well, again, it's not intriguing to me. It's all just sounds like more religious talk. Let's pretend we're photons. Let's pretend this. Let's pretend that. It's all pretend bullshit that gets not to the real fucking point of this fucking channel, which isn't to sit there and talk about all the wooey directions your little imagination can go in. The real point of the conversation is to say, what the fuck did we know when Newton stopped? Okay, when physics stopped, when science died, when Newton died, and what did science do with the information since then? And it's all been nothing but bullshit, right? Newton finds out that there's a pattern created by a single slit. Then 150 years ago, some douchebag shows up with 2 slits and says all of a sudden, it's an interference pattern. It's magic. The photons are splitting in 2. They're doing all this magical stuff. How come all that magic talk wasn't necessary in Newton's day, when they had even a more miraculous event in the sense that the single slit was causing the pattern? Oh, no, that's not interesting. All of a sudden it became interesting. Why? Because they turned it into a bunch of wavy bullshit. Yes, the shadow is expelled. So he's putting expelled in quotation marks as if I said expelled. As if I said that. I didn't. In 180 degrees, to use his own words. Yes, 180 degrees of a sphere. So yes, if I have an orange, I cut the orange in half. That's right. One half radiates, the other half radiates. Those are equal but opposite effects. Douche, dumbass. All right. But that's a completely different, unrelated subject. No, it is exactly the subject of the inverse square law when it comes to asking where the Earth is accelerated. Well, we clearly know the Earth is accelerated in the sense that it's traveling with the sun, and the only acceleration that's different between the only motions that are different between the Earth and the sun is the fact that the Earth is going this way, or this way, or this way, or this way, that it has a velocity, and that it's being pushed towards the sun. So it's being accelerated down. So as they're both moving this way, the Earth is accelerated towards the sun, which keeps this motion changing. And that's it. But that's the only difference in their motion. This has motion away from the sun, and it's being pulled by gravity. It's being pushed by gravity towards the sun. And that's it. There's nothing complicated here. This is the movement. This is the movement. There's no, can't miss it. I mean, the Earth is moving with the sun. They both have these velocities. And if I separate them at further distance, the Earth is still going to go this way and the sun's still going to go that way. Well, you can't see it. Sun would go and the Earth would go. They both go, even if they were billions of miles away from each other. Dumb fuck. Anyway. But that's a completely different, unrelated subject when it comes to asking where the Earth is accelerated. No, it isn't. Stephen Coda's point will still remain because, so he says I haven't answered the fucking thing when I have answered it. When a part of the shadow gets to the Earth, it originated where the sun used to be. So again, he keeps talking as if there's this first that these two things aren't moving together, and that somehow, again, this circular shadow, the shadow of this, the fact that these things move, a piece of the sun, the same size. See, I can't make a parallel to the real dimensions. I mean, the Earth is tiny compared to the sun in terms of 1 million times the size, but it's at least 10 times the difference in the surface gravity. But anyway, the point is that when the Earth moves, a piece of the sun of the same mass moves also. So a little bit of the sun moves towards the Earth, and they're both moving towards each other, essentially. But the sun has all of its own motion from other planets, and so it doesn't just go with the Earth because it has other tugs on it from other things. But there's no inconsistency here. There's nothing that has been left unanswered. A part of the shadow gets to the Earth. It originated where the sun used to be. This is a true, regardless of whether the laser beam goes out at 180 degrees. So again, it's not true. So the point is that the sun's gravity is being created by the mass of the sun. That is, the bits on the surface here, okay, are being pulled down. Now, the ones here are being pulled up, but these are obviously much further away than these. So it's like any charge force. This force is going to be stronger than this force because this one's further away. And the point is that no matter where the Earth goes, there's mass being pushed into the center of the sun. And so there's acceleration being absorbed, okay, by the sun. Best way to say that. First, there's the acceleration being absorbed by the Earth. that affects the entire sun, and vice versa. You can't again, you don't affect one piece of the sun because the sun is circular. That's the whole point is it balances all the forces. That's why it's round. It's because it's balancing any force. Anything I put on top of the sun, any mountain I build will be crushed because it's going to absorb it and replace it with force from other directions. So it always balances out. It spreads into a spherical force. That's why it's an inverse square. It's radiating gravity in this divergent way that each little bit is diverging. So over time and space, there is no laser beam effect. It diverges. Oh, fuck. So again, it originates where the sun used to be. So again, there's no where the sun used to be. There's none of that bullshit has anything to do with the mechanism that creates the gravity. And again, it has to do with the percentages. So something moving the speed of light versus the speed that, so he's saying that, okay, is if these two things are moving through space, that somehow this speed can undo the fact that the speed of the transmission of gravity wouldn't be capable of overwhelming this speed. So in a sense, he's saying because, well, it doesn't matter because this is moving the same speed. So again, you can't outrun it because you're moving the same speed as it. And so he's making the argument that essentially the force of gravity is coming out, trailing behind. Okay, so in a relativity argument, he would say, oh, that never happens. You know, gravity can never trail behind. Okay, but it wouldn't matter because the sun is a sphere. It's round. So I'm using this round thing as this dimension, but it has to be both dimensions. So it's creating gravity forward of itself and it's creating gravity behind itself. So again, that argument doesn't work. So you can't say the Earth can outrun the gravity because the gravity is going to be in the forward location also. So even if the Earth does go very fast forward, gravity's already there because this is a sphere and it's creating gravity in that direction. Dumbass. I mean, this is just a little fine point. And again, I've already pointed out how this argument doesn't mean anything if you understand this simple premise that this motion relative to something positioned somewhere has a component in this direction and in this direction. That has real meaning, that every velocity vector has a component relative to any other point in space. And it has a component up and left and right, so to speak. Up and down, up and right. Vertical and horizontal. All right. Let's see what we got here. Let's see. Acceleration has a point to a specific direction. Acceleration, no, it doesn't. And when it's absorption. So again, you just don't get it. You just continue not to get it. Okay, that I can be moving in a lot more than one direction. So right now, my physical body, as it's pushed by gravity, some of the force hits other atoms and the force goes this way. The force moves in lots of different directions as it has a primary effect in one direction, but to create that effect, it can create X pressure this way. So if I compress something, I push on it on both sides, I can cause force to push, make it wider if it's at all flexible. So it's just silly to sit there and say it always has a direction. No, it has a direction based on the form of the substance that you're affecting. And the fact is the sun can absorb it in one direction and release it in another direction for free. But if gravity is a central force and it is finite, we don't know how strong the external pressure is. So we don't know what the pressure is, what the exhaustion pressure is of gravity, say of true vacuum pressure. it doesn't go down like you depict right now. So again, bullshit. Yes, it does. Has a force and it is finite speed. Yeah, it doesn't go down like you depict now. Well, again, I just point out how it does because it's a sphere. So again, you're just going to keep denying that. Why is the Earth round? It's round because gravity makes it round. And why does it make it round? Because the force is pulling on it evenly it balances the force. So clearly that's one of the things it does is balance force. It converts more force in one direction into those little forces that pull all that part apart. So if there's anything that's out of balance, it's going to cause it to be balanced. So keep pretending that's not true. Lying piece of shit. All right, I don't understand. If you are in the shadow, so again, you're using his terminology. The idea is you create gravity through acceleration, through absorbing something that was going someplace else. So if this is the speed of light and it hits something, okay, then the speed of light has to move all the stuff inside of here. The little photon has to spread its momentum across this whole giant thing. So the giant thing just moves a little tiny bit. And that velocity is so much slower. But anyway, this was going the speed of light, and now it doesn't go where it was going. So it's inside of here making this move. So it can't get where it was going. You can't understand that if the bowling ball is rolling and the bowling ball goes inside of this, and now it's going to make this whole thing roll very slowly. Okay, the bowling ball is going the speed of light, goes inside of this, and now it's spreading its energy across this whole thing and moving each little bit of it a little bit at a time. So it's moving really slow, 1/billionth of the speed of light. The little bit that got absorbed doesn't go where it was going. So obviously it can't hit the thing it was heading for. So the thing it was heading for is going to have a difference in its balance, quite obviously. And the difference ends up being one where, yeah, now it's going to tend to move towards this thing. It's going to collect the extra, and it's going to move towards the lighter now. And when it moves towards the lighter, it's going to be absorbing force that would have hit the lighter. Now that force is going to hit the lighter. I mean, I've been over this so many fucking times. Shit. All right, it's going to be hit the shadow. It doesn't mean you are not going to be hit on the other side more. Well, it doesn't matter. The external pressure is presumed to be even. So yes, you will be hit by more on the outside if something on the inside doesn't get to you. And so there's no reason to move forward toward the other object, no matter where located in between, question mark. Well, again, I've been over this so many fucking times. I don't know how you can't understand. If the photon is absorbed, it's going this way. It gets absorbed by this thing, causes it to move much slower, much, much slower. It means the photon doesn't go where it used to go. If this wasn't here, the photon is going somewhere and it's going to hit something. If this is here, the photon doesn't get there because it's pushing this thing much slower than the speed of light. Fuck. I mean, if you can't get this argument, you really can't do physics. Come on. All right, that's not the argument. Well, whatever that's a reference to, fuck you. That's not what I'm saying. Well, what are you saying then, shithead? And by the way, how many force bits fit inside a photon? So this is just too stupid. I've only made this clear 4 million times. The photon is the force bit, you stupid bitch. I mean, fuck. You know, what are you hanging around here if you're not going to pay any attention at all? All right? I mean, I've explained how photons are individual bits of stuff at a frequency. They're separated by a distance, little bits separated by a distance. So obviously to have a photon, to be able to tell whether it's blue or red, you have to have at least 2 of them, right? Fuck. Just too stupid. People, this is why the planet Earth is a shithole. Because people are too fucking dumb. The entire point of the post was to explain that this is not what the argument is. Oh, so that was the entire point. So you reference a video where I'm making the argument, the perfectly valid argument about why this Einstein crap is complete bullshit, two mathematical gimmicks that are completely unsourced as any reason whatsoever for these two gimmicks. Why do these gimmicks exist? Except to make magic happen. Yet you go on to put out the same talk. Yeah, again, so you're not saying anything. These little half sentences you're writing aren't saying anything. Oh, you're misreading what I wrote. Well, I read it as best I could. I don't think I slaughtered it in any particular way. So what the fuck are you saying then, jack fucking ass? I mean, you write all this crap, and yet it seems quite incomprehensible. All right, in Newtonian mechanics, I don't give a fuck about this stupid word Newtonian mechanics. There are no such thing as Newtonian mechanics. It's the inverse square fucking law. All he did was recognize the fact that it's an inverse square law, period. That's it. There is no other mechanics, you fucking idiot. Acceleration does have a specific direction. Again, it doesn't matter whether it has of course it has a specific direction, but when it's absorbed by a sun, okay, that specific direction just becomes either it's coming from the top or it's coming from the bottom. It becomes the two planes of the dimension. All it cares about is the component in a direction, you stupid shit. Don't you know what dimensions are? The dimensions have two sides. There's left, right, top, bottom, forward, back. Can you understand that, you stupid cunt? Why do you think they're spherical, shithead? Obviously, they're blending force to be spherical, shithead. It's a fucking goddamn averaging of force. Isn't it quite obviously an averaging? Asswipe. They obviously are doing more than this stupid narrow perception that, oh no, the acceleration can't possibly be interpreted as having a component in this direction and a component in this direction when it's going this direction. Yeah, it can be. That's what matter does. It interprets force. Idiot. All right. In Newtonian mechanics, acceleration. To say otherwise, you contradict everything Walter Lewin said in his 801 lecture series. Well, of course, I contradict what Lewin believes. I've done that overtly. What he believes Huygens is real. He believes Heisenberg is a real thing that really happens. Okay, he believes lots of nonsense. And it doesn't undo Maxwell's equations, motherfucker. So keep pretending it undoes something. It doesn't undo any of the stuff that's solid physics. It only does the wishy-washy mush. Your silly fucking goddamn bullshit descriptions of causes. Your fucking rainbows and merry-go-rounds of fucking silly shit that you believe in. All right, to say anything goes in two directions is nonsense. So what can you say? There's nothing to say. This is the same asshole who will talk about how photons can't go perpendicularly when a spaceship's moving half the speed of light, that they somehow have to go forward. You know, the same asshole who makes that idiotic argument. All right, he has photons going two directions, this way for free and this way at the speed of light. Yeah, right. And you're telling me I'm full of nonsense. Fuck you. The sphere originated from where the sun used to be. So what does that even mean? The sphere originated from where the sun used to be. And used to be relative to what? And it can't be used to be relative to the earth, because the earth is moving exactly the same direction that the sun is moving. So how exactly can those two things, how don't you understand relativity? This is the basketball inside the bus. This is the person inside the bus. Anything the person does with the basketball inside the bus doesn't matter, because the bus is going 60 miles an hour and both of them are going 60 miles an hour. So that part doesn't matter, Jack Whack. You fucking idiot. Let's see. Sorry, Gary. I was talking about a thing which is between two other objects creating a shadow. together, like B is between A and C. Well, again, I don't know. We're not talking about physical shadows. We're talking about gravity. So I don't know. You're just going to make things more confusing then. I said proton, not photon. So what are you talking about protons then? What's your thing with protons? Oh, shit. Protons don't move the speed of light. She did say proton. Oh, okay. So, well, you want me to go back and find the message? Let's see. And by the way, how many force bits fit inside a proton? Okay. Well, that's not important. Who cares? I mean, the protons can only. You could measure it by measuring how much force it takes to accelerate a proton, and that'll tell you how many energy bits are inside of it. So if it takes a million little bits of photon energy to move a proton, well, then you know it's got to be, well, because each photon is really is 2 bits, so it'd be half that total. So then you would know that that's how many bits it takes, because that's how much energy you have to put in to get a proton to go half the speed of light, let's say. So you just measure how much energy a proton has to consume to gain acceleration, and you can decide its mass. But clearly they've already had trouble measuring its mass. Its mass is a little difficult to measure. But why is that important to you? How does that do anything to explain the huge fucking cavern of distance between my interpretation of the facts and their interpretation of the facts, which is the subject here? The subject is their silly bent space explanation and their silly wave mechanic bullshit of quantum mechanics. That's the fucking subject. How fucking heavy a proton doesn't matter to them, and it doesn't matter to me. It is not critical to any of this bullshit. All right. To say anything goes in 2 directions is nonsense. The sphere originated from where the sun used to be. So these are just meaningless sentences. I said proton. Okay, where did it? She did say, who cares? You're mocking others, but you misread her. Well, again, I had no expectation that in the middle of this conversation she would ask some stupid, idiotic question, frankly, and I have the text pretty small. About protons in the middle of this fucking conversation. What the fuck is it in the middle of this conversation for? What does it have to do with the subject at all? So yeah, I thought you'd be somewhere on the subject of photons, which we're talking about, and gravity. I was trying to represent and defend Stephen Koa. So again, you're representing him by what? Showing my lengthy explanation of how gravity works. Okay, explaining the inverse square law. You haven't demonstrated how I did anything wrong to this person, besides react to what I thought was a garbage theory. And it was garbage to sit there and tell me that my theory doesn't work because of it. And I think that's what he implied, that somehow I can't overcome this problem. And this isn't a real problem. It's not a problem at all. This stupid argument that somehow forces are bouncing back and forth between the earth and the sun. It's just not the way it works. It's not how gravity works. All right, so here we go again. No one, absolutely no one, that particle gravity involves, let's see, says that particle gravity involves any kind of back and forth narrow shadows. So you're sitting there talking about how somehow the force is going to miss the earth or the sun because of the speed is too slow and it's going to lag behind or something. And yet you're saying that somehow now it's no one's saying that. It's amazing. How does anybody read this shit without just going, fuck you? Yet he took someone's concern, replaced it with a fallacious concern, whatever that is, and then proceeded to mock the other person for something he didn't even say. Says you. Why don't you just post the motherfucker's comment if you're so confident about what he said? Then at 1:15, he goes on to distort what the other person even more, telling him to go ahead and believe that there's no consistency to the speed of light. Stephen never said anything like that. He claimed that somehow you can't have a gravity force that isn't going the speed of light. That's his claim, that somehow the speed of light is much too slow, that even Einstein's gravity will fall apart if it's going the speed of light, even though it's in his equations, as I pointed out. It's in Einstein's equations. The speed of light makes the math work better. So why would we think the force isn't moving the speed of light? It quite obviously is. Stephen Coda even replies and says himself, I never said I don't believe the speed of light. You're putting words in my mouth. Again, his statement was there's some massive problem that cannot be resolved, okay, if this force moves at the speed of light. So it's another one of these claims, like these assholes who claim, there's no particle explanation for the two-slit experiment, as if they have tested every particle explanation in the universe and they know for sure that no particle explanation could ever work. Have they ever done that? No, they haven't even come close. They haven't even considered one particle theory, let alone all of the particle theories. So again, just more bullshit from these assholes. All right, you're mocking others, but you misread her. So again, we keep saying the same thing. I was trying to represent and defend. Okay, that's not what he said. So again, what's not what he said? Again, what did he say? Why don't you just post his comment and I'll respond to it again? He basically made this implication that somehow a particle theory can't work with particles moving the speed of light. And of course it can. You have to be more specific. I don't have to be anything. No one is saying the force will miss. Oh, so what are you saying then? If it's not a, whatever they use for that word, I mean, they use that word for in telescopes, the aberration. There's no aberration problem. The link and timestamp was given. It is difficult to write everything there. I don't even know what that means. I already played my own video. Yes, I did a quite excellent job. I'm not going to keep playing my own videos, retard. Fuck you. All right. All right, then at 1:15, he goes on to distort what the other person said even more, telling him to go ahead and believe that there's no, okay. Replies and says himself, okay. Then at 1:17, so 2 minutes later, Gary distorts what he says even further, saying, well, what are you doing this for? I never said I didn't believe in the speed of light. When you said gravity can't move at the speed of light because the earth would blow up. That's what he said something that's silly. Gravity can't move the speed of light because the earth would blow up. He wrote something that silly. And what do you want me to say to that? Clearly, we know the force moves the speed of light. So what the fuck is he arguing then? How the fuck do you make sense of this asshole you're defending? Gravity can't move the speed of light. So even though it's in Einstein's equations that it does, even though every physicist knows that it moves the speed of light, let's pretend it can't because the earth would blow up. What are you defending here, you fucking retard? Oh, man, I can't believe these fucking cunts. He goes so far as twisting someone else's words and how now claims the other person doesn't think gravity travels at the speed of light, when in fact he never ever said that. So he says, I never said, I don't know. Here, okay. Gravity can't move the speed of light because the earth would blow up. That's what he said in his comment. He said there was some kind of, tragic end. It couldn't possibly happen. How can it not possibly happen when everybody knows that's what the speed of gravity? All right, the link and the times. Okay, it means on here, I don't know. Light has a finite speed. So you see where the sun used to be. Correct. Yes, duh. So what? Again, you're still talking as if gravity goes into something and it comes out directly right back. That it isn't dimensional. That there's a difference between forward and back. You throw something in, the equal but opposite reaction can be two angles this way. So you can have one thing go in, one thing goes this way. All right. And you can have the equal and opposite reaction go this way and this way. You can have it do two things going the opposite direction. You can split the force in any vector that has a component that's the opposite to the vector you're fighting. So this comes in this way, and any force going this has any force that has a component in that direction, okay, will count as being a portion of the force necessary to be the opposite reaction. The opposite reaction does not have to be a perfect reflection. That's only when you get on electron and electron kind of behavior. That's only when you have two discrete little things that are going to react to each other. When you have big things can blend forces, and then all they have to do for the equal and opposite reaction is they just have to have something in with a components of the right force in the other direction, shithead. All right. All right, this is true even if light expands out in a sphere, correct? Sid nada. I don't know what that means. So again, it's true in the sense that you're talking about what we see, all right? And we always have to see the rays of light that go directly to our eyes. We're not seeing all the rays that aren't going directly to our eyes. We don't see all the images that exist everywhere else. I mean, the video you're watching is actually projected in a million other places. It's all over the place. In the house you're living in, the projection is going everywhere. Stupid ass. The body is attracted to the origin of the shadow. Yes, no. No, it's attracted as an equal but opposite reaction in the sense that it's going to be exactly in the plane of the dimension. Some portion of that plane of the dimension is going to be where the reaction is going to be. The equal but opposite reaction. All right, so Venus is trying again. Gary, I liked your idea of the lattice on the wall making the on-off pattern. I don't know where I didn't. That's not my idea. Can you please tell me how the gravity on scale of galaxy is different from solar system? No, I'm not going to get into all that. They don't have any good theories on galaxies. They don't even know whether they're expanding or contracting. And galaxies are clearly very different than solar system in simple ways. Solar systems, big sun in the middle, little tiny bits of matter in all kinds of different locations. No balance. The Earth is over here. There's no opposite Earth. Galaxies completely different, completely symmetrical. All the mass is symmetrical. If there's any mass over here, there's an opposite mass over here. Okay, completely different structural function. And those arms of the galaxy have a huge amount of mass in them. So unlike planets and solar systems, where from a distance you wouldn't even see the planets, they're so tiny, the galaxy is known by the mass in the field, not the mass in the center. The center almost looks hollow. It looks empty in many cases. And it has, it does have a lot of energy coming out of it, though, because it does have some massive stars in it. But in many cases, you almost see through the galaxy. The center isn't obviously where all the mass is. The mass is spread out in the arms of the galaxy. So very different mechanisms. But anyway, look, it's really not on the subject. I'm dealing with this issue of what causes gravity. So, unless you get to the cause argument, you're not getting anywhere. The body is attracted to the origin of the shadow. No, Gary, no, okay, don't like that. That makes so much sense. Yes, if the force is created by an imbalance of force, it has to be pushed to where there was less pressure. How can you deny this? This is so stupid. Yeah, and I explained how the less pressure is being created in all directions from the sphere. It's a sphere. Jesus Christ, this is so stupid. I don't know how I can make it any more clearer. I mean, it's a sphere. The gravity is equally being absorbed in all directions by the acceleration of stuff towards the center. All right. And there's more, and after you balance all the force, there's left over the fact that there's mass accelerating towards the center of the sun's gravity. That's where the mass is accelerating towards. And that acceleration is an absorption from the other point of view. Okay, from one side's point of view. Let's see, how's a better way to say it? I'll get back to it. I'll read what your crap is over here first. Let's get rid of this argument first, this aberration argument. Let's bury it for once and for all. All right, draft science has to give a completely unrelated non sequitur to mock the other person for something they didn't say or even imply. So yes, they did say it. I didn't make that up. And so this is just all bullshit. He said that the other theories don't pan out. So again, and then asked draft science whether he has a reply to this problem. So what are the theories don't pan out? So again, this whole obnoxious idea that somehow there's some evidence somewhere that something doesn't work. Well, where's the evidence of this thing not working? So again, I explained it. It has nothing to do with it. There is no aberration problem because it's not how the force works. Admittedly, I don't know how much Stephen Coda understood the implications of his own words. Well, so you're admitting that his own words basically were saying something like the Earth is going to fall into the sun, or the Earth can't stay in gravity if it's the speed of light. And that's what he said, and I responded to appropriately. I mean, this is just so amazingly nitpicky goofball nonsense for you to sit there and write all this text over an issue and then concede that, yeah, well, what he said, I don't even think he understands what he said. I mean, you're conceding the argument right there, and don't know whether or not he simply decided to drop this, but the point still stands. Well, I'm saying the point doesn't still stand. Is it okay? Question mark. Is this acceptable? Is this not outright disgusting behavior? Amazing. So I'm disgusting, and the other guy you're saying didn't even know what he was talking about. You're amazing, asshole. Are you going to keep ignoring this? Ignoring what? So I sat there and did a video, drew pictures of the whole thing, went through the explanation, and he's telling me I ignored it and keep listening to only his straw manning of others. So again, I straw manned him how? By explaining and drawing the pictures of how gravity works. Keep in mind, he's disrespectful and just wants what he perceives to be an idiotic statement. Well, I'm insulted by people who ask me questions when they haven't even watched any of my videos, not one complete video, like Piro. But if it actually him who misrepresents what others being said, and does he deserve in return? So again, clearly his comment was bullshit. His comment was asserting something as a fact that somehow the speed of light can't be true because somehow the universe couldn't work if the force moves at the speed of light. That was the clear implication of his comment. And this is all just made up by this mindless marbles bullshit. All right. I want to be successful, but don't have to stop responding to people who are disrespectful. So now he's quoting the other guy. Does someone who distorts what others say deserve any success? So again, this idea that I distort what other people say when I read their fucking rubbish, I do the best effort I can to understand their silly and stupid, inane, idiotic points. I mean, this is just such a pile of fucking bullshit. So fuck all of this crap you wrote, because it's all fucking lies and nonsense. Fucking scurvy piece of shit. All right. So now back to the live ass wipes. You didn't understand his comment. So another, he just keeps saying absolute inane crap, and I'll just block you. Fine. The force is created by an imbalance of force. It has to be pushed to where there is less pressure. It doesn't push. So again, that's not the argument being made. The argument being made is that the momentum is absorbed. So if there's an imbalance of energy hitting something, the point is what it'll do is it'll absorb more in that direction than it absorbs in the other. It always absorbs the energy, some percentage of it. So some percentage of the energy hitting it, it's absorbing it. Okay, and then it absorbs energy in the opposite direction, and then it absorbs this, and then it absorbs that. It's going like this all the time. It's moving. Everything is Brownian motion at its core because it absorbs the energy that impacts it. All right, so now if more things are hitting it from this side, that means it's going to absorb more over probabilistic time going this way, then it's going to absorb going this way. So this thing itself is going to end up moving, and it's going to be moving by a percentage of this force in balance. The force weighs 1 ounce, let's say, and this thing weighs 1 million tons. The 1 ounce of force has to be divided over all the 1 million tons, and then you decide how fast it gets to move. But clearly the force that was going someplace doesn't get where it was going. The force was moving the speed of light. This thing isn't going to move the speed of light. It's going to be moving much slower. So this force that would have gone here and hit something else never gets there, which means the thing that's there has to absorb that force. Now, I can't make it any clearer than that. It's a fucking perfectly rational explanation. It's perfectly force and energy conservational, and it explains exactly why there's an inverse square law, and explains how two things are pushed, quote unquote, into each other by absorbing force. They don't really get pushed in the sense of me just, well, you know, when I push something, I'm doing the same thing. The force is going out of me and into it. I'm generating force by moving my hand. That's force. It takes force to make that happen. My hand has to fill up with stuff going this way for my hand to move that way. And when it does that and it hits something, it transfers this force into this thing. Just like the space shuttle, you know, the expansion of the gas molecules is being a percentage of it is being absorbed in this direction, and the flame comes out the opposite reaction. Dumb fuck. All right. I don't know what Hellboy is. Hilly boy. I don't even know what that is. Hilly boy. I don't even know what that is. I don't understand this comment. I didn't understand this comment. You don't understand this comment. Yeah, I did. Not on the subject. That's for sure. Whoops, sorry. LOL. Yes, so why are you nitpicking words? Yes, so why are you nitpicking words? What am I nitpicking? I don't understand. So I respond to some idiot who says the speed of light matters somehow. That if you don't have an instantaneous force, that somehow the universe falls apart. I explained first that, well, it's in Einstein's math, so you're full of shit. It's kind of proven because the math works better with the speed of light. And, you know, I don't really care one way or the other. I mean, frankly, but yeah, it's sort of for consistency arguments, I would argue that it seems pretty clear that all the forces are made of the same thing, and it's all moving the speed of light. So the photons and the magnetons, you know, the virtual tons of magnetism and gravity are all the same force because they're all moving the same speed. And they're just different manifestations of the same thing. They're just a different variety of the same thing. And this asshole is saying, that can't possibly work. No, it works beautifully. And I'm nitpicking. I don't know, what the fuck? How am I nitpicking? You're the nitpicker. The preposterous nitpicker. You made me read all that crap and go to my own video where I'm making a perfectly rational argument, and you're somehow pointing out, look at this horrible bullshit this guy's speaking. And it's a perfectly rational clip. I don't understand you at all. Observing scale helps to see what happens on lab bench. Oh, this is not relevant. Happens in nanoseconds or millions of miles in space, happens very slowly. Well, what does that have to do with anything? You're another truther who doesn't think there's a speed of light, right? Fine, you're an idiot. A speed of force. All the forces move the same speed. This is what happens when you can't afford cable TV. Well, this is what happens when you can't make a fucking rational comment. Go fuck yourself till dead, you piece of shit. Witchy boo. God, I'd just kill you on sight if I was president. Yeah, there'd be no point. Anybody who has a screen name, Witchy Boo, yeah, just fucking grease them. Grease them. Hi, Gary. When the force bit energy is absorbed, does the force bit stop moving at C? So it's just an amazing, clearly it keeps working inside of whatever it's trapped inside of, just like the Earth keeps spinning around the sun. Its velocity is permanent, the little bit's velocity. The point is that little bit's velocity is essentially going to be spread over the entire substance of the thing it hits. So it's essentially going to go in, and it's just going to somehow, a little bit at a time, just nudge every single little piece of this matter, okay, through the process of the geometric physics of the electrons and the protons and the force. The force is essentially just going to be constantly spread over all of the atoms inside of the material and cause them to move. So it's, as long as it's inside here, it's always going this way, and it's always, it never gets through the object. Okay, it just keeps, it eventually leaks out, but it can be trapped forever in cul-de-sacs, in squares, and bouncy things where it just keeps bouncing back and forth in two directions. So it can just keep going like that. It can just keep going. I keep forgetting the camera's over here. Sorry about that. I've already explained how this motion can be perpetual, in the sense that if you have two electrons and a proton here in the middle, and you have force between them, the electron force will 90-degree turn at the proton. It'll just keep and so the force will just keep bouncing off the electrons, being diverted by the proton. It'll just keep doing this forever. And if this doesn't toss any energy, that means the force keeps hitting these electrons up. So they keep going this way forever. I'm just saying that that's the model. The model is the force enters the object, and it continually pushes it one little photon quanta of energy at a time. So every second it moves it a little tiny bit. Shit. Anyway. Let's see, Einstein's math does something different. That's a nothing statement. It's absolutely nothing. Einstein's math includes lots of things. It certainly doesn't do something different than the speed of light. It does the speed of light. It considers the force to move the speed of light. Yes, Einstein adds a bunch of other crap, and that has to do with the precession of the sun's center of gravity. All right, and that's the complex tensor bullshit. But and I'm just already pointed out how the force is inductive. Didn't I just point out how the force is inductive? That's really what Einstein's math is getting to, is that as this absorbs force and accelerates and moves towards this gets hit by less force, which means it accelerates towards it. And that causes more acceleration here. And that causes more acceleration here. And that causes more acceleration here. I've already explained that. And that's what Einstein's math deals with. But Einstein's math doesn't say something different. It doesn't say anything different than the inverse square law. So you're the one distorting the truth. You're too all over the place to have any structured exchange of information. You're too fucking irrelevant and bullshitty. Fuck you. Just fuck off. I'm not the one all over the place. You just wasted a whole bunch of everybody's time posting links to where I'm supposed to be rude to somebody, and you didn't demonstrate any rudeness at all. You didn't prove your accusation. You just made another unaccountable piece of shit accusation and wasted my time and everybody else's time. So fuck off for good, you fucking asshole. Why don't you just go find something else to do? Play with your own anus. I think that would be a lot better if you argue over Skype or, oh, fuck you, something, because when you finally read people's comments, you really forget what you said. I don't even know what that argument is, but fuck you for that. I mean, really, these assholes can't do Skype. Look, to get into a Google Plus room is really easy. To get into this room is really easy. All you have to have is a mic. And these assholes haven't done it, so fuck you for typing that shit. Or like Google Hangouts, I mean. Oh, this is a Google Hangout. Newsflash. Jesus fucking Christ. I've pointed it out in previous videos. All they have to do is ask for the fucking link. I'll send them the link to the room. They get right in the room right now. They're all fucking gutless pieces of shit. Scale up proportion has nothing to do with the speed of light. Scale and proportion. What does this have to do with scale and proportion? What do those words have to do anything to do with this? What are you talking about? How does this make any sense as a comment? Scale and proportion has nothing to do with the speed of light. Well, duh. As I pointed out, the force of gravity is a nuclear force. So the size of the Earth has nothing to do with gravity in a sense. It just has to do with how many atoms and how many electrons and protons are in the space. All right. Wait, it gets bounced between all the atoms. Wait, it gets bounced between all the atoms. It gets spread. The force spreads because every atom is connected to every other atom, technically. They bounce into each other. And all the little electrons and all the protons are all connected to each other. In a sense, they all create force. And especially in any kind of hard substance, all the atoms are stuck to each other. And that means the electrons are in tension to each other. So yeah, you move one of them, you essentially move all of them, because they always balance the force between them. You can't have, if I take 10 magnets all heads up and I put them between a plane of glass, right? So I got 10 magnets here, all repulsive to each other, and I try to push them together, right? Now, if I tie them together like with a rubber band around them, you can understand that if I poke one of them, all the other magnets are going to move. They'll rebalance the distance so they have all the same amount of distance between them. They'll always have the same amount of distance between them. So if I move one of them, all the rest of them are going to move. You can't understand that? Oh, anyway, every time I think I get something, I don't. Well, whatever. I'm sorry, I didn't know, Gary. I was just trying to help. Well, I don't see how it's a help. I need trolls in the room. Oh, yes, you need more trolls in the room. You need to have a Skype conversation with a fucking troll. You really are a disgusting human being. No, you're a waste of my fucking time. You make these inane minutia arguments and then you don't even prove them. So you waste my time first with fucking minutia, and you do this absolutely shitty job of proving your fucking idiotic accusations. So just leave me the fuck alone. Fuck off. We obviously cannot communicate with each other. You're a putsy anal motherfucker. I mean, again, I couldn't make it clear. I got the question videos sitting there. Why don't you post these idiotic jackass comments? Why don't you make your sock accounts to post comments there? Why don't you answer the fucking questions? Thanks, Gary. It is fair to say that gravity can be fully explained by your force bits moving, I don't know, linearly at c without any perpendicular direction changes or polarity properties. I don't know why you have to add all that other crap. I mean, it explains the force of gravity is the crude force in the sense that, look, it's really magnetism because it's really moving electrons and protons. So in a sense, okay, but it's magnetism that's neutralized because all of the directions add up to no direction. So the magnetic polarity is mixed, so it all doesn't add up to anything. So in that sense, you don't see the magnetism, but it's really magnetism in the sense that it's really electron force and proton force that's being absorbed. But anyway, it's just, you know, I just don't see the point of this without any perpendicular. What does perpendicular have to do with gravity? I mean, it's really just not an important part of this. Look, he just keeps making sock accounts. Why do you just keep doing this? I mean, I've asked you just to fuck off. We can't communicate. You are an insane anal kook. All right? You don't respond to any of my questions, and then you ask me these insane minutia questions that I've answered over and over and over again, and you claim I didn't answer them when I have answered them. I like the video when you met up with that psychopath Piro. Oh, well, whatever. Piro's been around for 10 years. I didn't just meet up with him. All right, so it looks like the fucking useless gallery is done. Yeah. It's all mindless marbles. That's all there was. It's all the trolls. It's all there are is trolls and idiots. Sorry, but you're all idiots. Have a good week, y'all. Really sucks, etc. Whatever that means. Reality sucks. No, who cares? Y'all. Whatever. Bubba. See how many viewers? 21. Huh. Pretty poor questions. Pretty poor comments. Pretty poor everything. No, let's get rid of that, I guess. That we don't need. Let's see. So all we really need is this and this, I guess. All right, is Ken Wheeler? Oh, who cares? An expert on cameras. Well, look, he's sold cameras for years, and obviously he's taken apart a few cameras. Certainly knows some shit about cameras, but I think like that when he's talking about sensor size and stuff, some of that is gimmicks, and there's a certain truth to, even though the sensor has. Let's see. I don't know. I don't want to get into a resolution argument. But there's always advantages and disadvantages. It's like compound lenses. Fewer part of the argument could be the fewer lenses, the better, because each lens introduces errors, distortions. But there are counter arguments about how you can get a certain level of precision by adding more lenses. So, it's a 50-50 kind of argument. There's benefits and there's cost and benefits. None of it's free. So none of it's, so I don't know what, I think an expert ought to just sort of point out that it depends on what you're after. That you can't just say one thing is better than something else. You have to point out how they all have disadvantages, and it's like a big car versus a small car, sporty car versus the heavier car is a softer ride. You can go faster without even knowing you're going faster. Lots of advantages, but disadvantages too. Needs more gas. Can I make an analogy between light rays coming out from the sun and rays of gravity coming out of the sun, as in demonstration of the inverse square law? In a sense, you can, but you have to acknowledge that those rays only come out, quote unquote, if the earth or the sun moves. So part of it has to move for that ray of pull to be admitted. So we think about it as a pull ray, as a tractor beam. The tractor beam can only it has to be commensurate to movement. But the movement doesn't have to be, the movement can be in any direction on the same plane of up or down or right or left or forward and back. So as long as the force can be admitted in any direction on that plane. Do you like Christmas? You're really close to getting blocked. Thank you for response, Gary. Regarding the inverse square law of gravity, do you see that as relating to radiation of photons from a specific location? Well, I've already pointed out that all these forces should be considered radiant, and because you're mixing a whole bunch of little flashlights. So if I have a bunch of flashlights, 1 million of them, and I throw them inside of something, randomly they'll be pointing in all kinds of directions. And so you could understand that the thing that has 1 million flashlights in it will radiate light in all directions evenly. You can sort of get that impression that that would be a reasonable expectation. And so there has to be some other mechanism that obliges them to move in one direction for them just to be in one direction. Something has to organize them for that to happen. Make this text bigger. Not much bigger, but it'll have to do. Doesn't look any bigger, actually. Oh, it's because I used the wrong keyboard, Einstein. Oh, you mean you have to use the keyboard connected to that computer? Go figure. All right. And I can make myself fat. I don't think I'll do that. Could make myself bigger since the chat is puny-ish. I guess I could make the chat bigger too. Come on, Linux, you can do it. There we go. But you don't need to see it twice because you already saw it once. No, I don't need any moderator, and certainly you wouldn't make a very good one. Let's see. Have you tried writing an email to Sean Carroll? Yes, I did actually a couple of years ago. And no response. It's pretty clear you don't actually want to persuade the world. Okay, it's pretty clear, right? So I make all these videos, overview video explaining everything, blah, 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 da, 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 but I'm not trying to explain it now. If you succeed, you'd have nothing to live for. I don't know how that makes any sense. Nothing to make you feel special. I don't really understand that either. So you muddy water while feigning depth. So I don't know. Obviously, just complete psychobabble rubbish. Just absolute nonsense. It can't possibly mean anything to me. How can anybody make that mean something? It's such a silly and idiotic comment. Let's see. Oh, we're back to the Puro comment. We don't like that one. Let's see. Okay, I call it a ray of pull. So using this speech, can I say a body has a net force to the ray of pull? Net force? Again, I have to say it somehow. Again, I already made it so clear. It has to absorb a force. And when you absorb the force doesn't go somewhere. What is so complicated here? If the force doesn't go somewhere that it would have gone, there's going to be a change. And frankly, it's going to be an imbalance. And that imbalance means the other thing has to react to the absence of the force. So why are you making this any more complicated than what I've explained? Sean Carroll was one on Joe Rogan. I watched that. Staunch atheist. So what? He's an idiot. He's a pussy atheist besides. This is even true even if the rays come out in all directions. This is even true. But I don't even know what this means. This is even true. What is even true? Yeah, there's no point. This is even true. What is even true? This is no point. I farted in diaper and poo came out. Gee, that's funny. Oh, no, it's not. Thanks, Gary. I agree that the radical centrifugal, here we go again, radial, I mean, direction of the force is a result of numerous radiations in all matter of direction. I'm just saying that each thing is different, okay? I mean, gravity is different than magnetism, is different than nuclear forces. So the interactions between electrons is very different than the interactions between atoms and Earths and suns. So they all have to be understood for those differences. Clearly, unless the Earth is made out of neodymium, it's not going to have a magnetic imbalance. There is a net imbalance creating a net acceleration. Yes. That net acceleration is to the ray of pull. Is that okay? It's no, because again, you're trying to force, again, you're just ignoring the point I've made repeatedly, that the interaction is an absorption of force in a direction. And that directionality can be interpreted in any one of these directions by the body. So it can be admitted in any one of the directions, right, left, forward, back. It has to be one of those planes of the sphere. So again, the Earth can interpret the absorption into a array in any one of those directions. A 10% this way, 10% this way, 10% this way, or 10% this way, or it could be 99% this way. It can be blended any way by the time it's admitted as the pull ray. Just like the two-slit experiment spreads the light, it doesn't spread the same photon doesn't go everywhere. No, individual photons go to individual locations, and those are randomized. Well, the same kind of randomization is happening when the gravity is admitted, because it's absorbed the force in many different directions. It absorbed force going in all towards the center of gravity from the opposite plane of the emitter. Say that the right way. Thanks, Gregory. No, okay, we did that. There is a net imbalance creating a net acceleration. I think the Brian Cox is way more interesting. Well, you can think whatever you want. I think he's a complete immature douchebag. Silly quantum field bullshit. Is he the guy who waves his hands around a lot? No, that's what's his name? The little short guy. Well, they're all little short guys. That's what the fuck's his name? Another Jewish fellow. What the hell's his name? God damn it. Well, whenever. It'll come to me eventually. But yeah, he's so obnoxious. He probably believes nature is good. Well, I'm sure they all think nature is charming. Well, I'm just saying it's quite easily everything. Cars don't have to be conscious for me to call it a good car or a shitty car. So more bullshit, more girly talk. Oh, fuck. I don't think he's ever explicitly said that. Sid Nada. I don't know what I explicitly said, but whatever. Carol, why raised as an the Episcopalian is an atheist, or as he calls it, a poetic naturalist. Well, I don't care about any of this conversation, so I wish you people would get off of it. I really don't give a fuck. By the way, Gary, I don't think atheist necessarily means someone doesn't have to believe in the supernatural. Well, again, I don't care. Well, I didn't bring up this subject. I was the one who said he was a weak atheist. So what the fuck does this have to do with me? Yeah, I don't give a fuck about the word atheist, to tell you the truth, because most of them are douchebags. They're either nihilists or they're looking for UFOs everywhere. They're idiots. Hey, Mike. That's a funny person to show up here. I hope it's all tolerable. Well, of course it's not tolerable. Everybody's a fucking asshole. God, I just can't stand them. Stupid fucking cunts everywhere. Can't get anything right. I mean, you just have to go over and over the same shit over and over and over again. I just can't believe how many times I've been over it, and they just keep pretending I didn't explain it. It's like, oh. It's like, here's Mr. Spock, and let's say he exists in a sea of cockroaches, and the cockroaches are going this way and this, all going different ways. But there's more cockroaches going this way, and his little feet, the little cockroaches, he's on top of cockroaches, and the feet are a representation of the field of cockroaches. So if you change the amount of what the cockroaches in the field are doing, and there's a few more going this way, well, that means the ones under his feet, there'll be a few more that are going this way. So Mr. Spock will move this way, but only at cockroach speed. Okay, you can't move fast. He has to move slow because the cockroaches have to move really slow because they got a big heavy Mr. Spock on them. Okay, well, that's really pushing it. I mean, I've drawn it, I've explained it, and they just keep fucking banging into it like this is complicated. It's not complicated. Yeah, it is sad that everybody else is full of this ether fantasy. I mean, they all think everything's a medium, and it's just we're all sparky medium crap, little sparks and mediums. But I just played the Sean Carroll shit. I mean, the guy is so full of shit. I've watched another video where he's debating with another guy what theory will survive, relativity or quantum mechanics, because obviously they understand they got a problem with these two not being blendable. And, which one's more elemental. And it was just hilarious because Sean Carroll basically conceded that quantum mechanics doesn't have any principles, that there is no underlying mechanism. They got Heisenberg and some vague notions, but that's all they got. They don't have any physics. And so it was pretty funny. All the mainstream scientists are looking for these new, wild, complicated explanations. Yeah, well, they're just doing math, and it's not just about math. It's just again, math just explains, getting to the consequences is fine. We all see consequences, and yes, we can understand them, but that doesn't understand causes, and they're just so clueless when it comes to causes. Yes, they say they don't match up. They have been trying to blend them since the last 70s. They flip out if you even suggest one is wrong. Well, they're not flipping out nearly as much now because they want to replace them both with super quantum extra string double spandex theory. And the irony is that it's just so damn simple. I mean, it's really so fucking simple. It is just the inverse square law. It isn't any more, it's based on such simple mechanisms. I mean, I've given it to you so simple. It's one force, moves the speed of light, it's radiant, and it has polarization. And now you've explained charge and magnetism and gravity. Everything fits right in. It's just so perfect. And I get all this grief. It's just amazing. All this grief for finding the right answer. Well, I don't even know how you'd even describe pure fantasy, right? Is it made up as the TV movie The Blob? Yes, the multiverse is just as made up as The Blob. Okay, I mean, yes, you can make a movie about it, but it's just made up. There's no multiverse, there's no dual verse, there's no mini-verse, there's none of that shit. Well, they think math is the work of magic sorcery. Well, I don't know what they think, but they think math is reality, and it's not. I'm trying to say there is a net acceleration when it comes to gravity. I'm just saying, calling it a net acceleration doesn't mean anything. But yes, of course, it's absorbing energy from both of the directions. So yes, if it's getting hit by 6 punches this way and it gets 6 punches this way, and if there's 7 this way and only 6 this way, well, then you have one extra one still. So yes, you have a net imbalance. And until the balance is created, the net imbalance exists. So yes, you go in the direction of the imbalance. So yes, it's a net imbalance. Like that is comparable. That is compatible with everything you said so far. I don't know where I've said any. Why again? Why is this complicated? I just made it. It's 6 punches. You get 6 punches in the face, and you get 6 punches in the back of the head. Where does your head go? Oh, that's right. It doesn't go anywhere. So if I add one more to your face, then obviously your head starts going this way. Yes, not complicated. Yes, 2001 was a horrible, boring movie. The first 5 minutes were brilliant. The rest of the movie was a big waste of fucking time. Well, who cares where the universe is? I mean, entropy is a problem because you have to imagine there's photons leaving the universe, right? I mean, and photons are made of real energy. They're not made, you can't make infinite photons. You can only make a limited number of photons. So if we're leaking photons out of the universe, you have to expect that the universe is going to fucking get thin and anemic, and it's going to waste away. So yes, but there could be a catch. Yes, that creates a net imbalance, hence a net acceleration. Yes. Going in the planar direction, okay? In the plane, in the so again, you're just going to keep arguing that it's some kind of direct force, and it's not. As I keep trying to explain to you, it will be converted through the process into vectors that have a portion of velocity in the direction, and they only have to have a portion in that direction. So the punches don't have to be in my face. They can be this way. And that's going to count as 20% backwards. It's 70% this way and 30% backwards. See? So the 30% counts. And if I get hit again in another crooked direction, it could be 70% backwards and 20% sideways, or 30%. And so then I've got my 100%. So you have to think of it as a surface, and there's forward and back, and all that matters is it has to have an element in the direction of the forward and the back. Yes, that creates the net imbalance, hence the net acceleration. Yes, going in the direction of the net imbalance. So again, going in the general direction, I don't know how to explain it, the dimensional direction. Forward versus backward. This must be the cowboy and Jemima. That looks like his style. Psychotic assholes let loose. Well, obviously, I'm only talking about a half a sphere at the moment, but yeah, when you say surface, you mean surface of the sphere. I mean center of the gravity, actually. So, it gets even more complicated. But yes, the center of the gravity is where everything happens, so to speak, is where all the interpretation takes place, where all the net math is done. But yes, it's going to be in a dimensional direction. Laplace's, I don't know what Laplace's theory is. I mean, I've heard of it, but I don't remember what the hell it is. I'm sure it's car rap, or I'd be doing videos about how great Laplace was. I took trigonometry in high school. Again, this is irrelevant. Let's see. I'm asking all these basic questions because it's hard to keep what you say in one place. Now you say center of gravity. That is where the surface of the sphere originates. No, that's not where the surface originates. I'm saying that's where the calculation is done. The center of gravity is going to dictate the knowledge of everything that's happening because it's all connected. It's all moving towards the center of gravity. So I'm just basically saying the center of the gravity is going to do the addition about where the thing is actually going to move. When you move something, you're moving its center of gravity. I mean, if I put something in, weird shaped in space, and I put a rocket on it in a tangential position at some angle, I mean, clearly there's this weird circumstance where some of the motion is going to be converted into spin and some of the motion will be converted into actual motion. So the argument is that complexity of that circumstance is being decided by the center of the gravity and where it's located and what its distance is from this force. So I'm just saying it gets a little bit complicated. It's not just force in this direction and this thing moves, right? That doesn't happen. You don't just hit it here and this thing moves this way. No, it spins. All right. So it converts energy going this way into motion going this way. Do you get it? So it converts it into acceleration in all these other directions. So somehow the equal and opposite reaction is quite complex. It is an actual equal and opposite reaction, but it's very complicated because it happens over all of this structure and all of the different bits are going to move in a different direction. This bit's going to move this way. This bit's going to move this way. That'll be equal and opposite. They'll undo each other. This amount of motion will be compensated by this amount of motion this way. So that'll be compensated for. You see what, so it's not so simple. It's simple, but it's not, you just don't say you put a force in and you get exactly this force out. It's not going to be that equal with giant massive objects. Force in isn't going to be force directly the same force out. It's going to be a little bit different. The force out is going to be a reflection of the function of the object, the shape of it and its circumstance. Okay. Weight is center of mass, the center of gravity. Yes. Okay. Laplace developed a, whatever this is, it's stored on my screen, nebular hypothesis, I don't care, of the origin of the solar system. Who cares? And was one of the first scientists to postulate the existence of black holes. Well, then he was an idiot. Well, whether black holes exist or not is an unknown, but clearly the idea that you can super compress matter when there's no explanation for exactly how you would do that, we can't do it. Right? There's no evidence you can smash electrons next to each other, and you surely can't smash protons next to each other. So you have to have electrons and protons in just the right configuration to get them compressed. But even when you compress them, you can't compress them in these preposterous ways where you can turn the Earth into a size of a pea. I mean, that kind of bullshit is kind of silly, in my opinion. A 2 million solar mass black hole. I mean, do you think that kind of crap actually exists? Block this. Yeah, well, I might. I didn't barely pass trigonometry. I got straight B's in trigonometry, asshole. I barely passed physics, you dumb fuck. You can't keep anything straight. But that's because the physics teacher was a fucking putz. So just fuck off, cunt. Now, well, it was to take things in order, right? You go algebra, then algebra 1, and algebra 2, and algebra 3. And then you go trigonometry is like the predecessor to calculus. And so I just never got to calculus. Das Book is well versed in being crazy. Okay, but you were talking about averages. I don't know how to say it. So I'm saying it's an average in a sense. I mean, this plus this, you're sort of averaging to come up with this, but it's not really an average, right? So I don't know. I don't know if average is the right word or not. I don't know if that's the concept, the right sense to use. It's obviously an interpretation through strict rules. I don't know what to say. I mean, obviously, I've explained it as well as I can explain it. I mean, this doesn't look like equal but opposite reaction, right? I mean, I hit this with a force, and this thing starts spinning. That doesn't look like the equal and opposite reaction, but it is. It just doesn't look like it, but it's in there. I was talking about what you said about how on-off doesn't always mean waves. That never means waves, actually, frankly. And I thought of another example, a tennis ball launcher, if you make one that shoots balls in 5 directions. And again, it just has to be the launcher doesn't shoot in 5 directions. The launcher shoots in 1 direction. And what you're really doing is just hitting the launcher. I mean, I've explained the 2-slit experiment over and over again. And clearly, I mean, the key factor you're changing as you make an aperture smaller and smaller and smaller is you're changing the likelihood that the photon travels right next to a surface. And doesn't take much gray matter to figure out that surfaces aren't what they look like, right? So again, we have this it looks like problem. This looks like it's smooth. Well, it looks that way, but it's not, because there is a bunch of little bits of nuclear crap, little electrons and other refuse hanging around on this surface, and it's very irregular in reality. And when the photon goes through, it's going to hit that crap in the atmosphere, so to speak, and that crap is going to make the photon move in a different direction. I'm genuinely curious about how much people understand what Gary says. So if they can't understand the Mr. Spock analogies, I mean, the absorption of energy, I mean, no matter how I say it, you get hit in the face 6 times, you get hit in the back of the head 6 times, where does your head go? They can't understand that. And if I hit them 7 times in the face and only 6 times in the back of the head, they can't understand that, oh yeah, my face will go that way. Oh, come on. Yeah, they can't understand. Yes, I can ask you about that. If the lattice, I don't like that word, makes the on-off pattern, isn't the problem since the wall is more than an atom thick? So again, this is irrelevant. I've said it hits the electron. Each electron it hits moves at 3 degrees. So if we just make that the simple rule, it hits an electron, and because of the frequency of the light, combined with the position of the electron, how much tension it is by how close the slits are. So the closer the slits, the more pressure the electrons are under. So, but let's just say it's 3 degrees. So it hits photon hits an electron and it moves 3 degrees this way or 3 degrees this way. Now, what happens if it hits 2 electrons? Well, the first time it could have gone this way, 3 degrees. And then the second electron, it could go that way. and that'll end up back to neutral, right? So you're 3 degrees this way, 3 degrees back, goes right back to neutral. But if it hits another electron that makes it go left again, then it went 3 degrees, and it goes 3 more degrees. So then you end up with the second bar, and the third bar, and the fourth bar, and the fifth bar. And probabilistically, it works out. It's a perfectly rational explanation. So if you hit 17 electrons, you can end up as the 8th bar because you hit more left than rights. What's so complicated? Let's see. I mean, you're send help. Fuck off. And how much do they understand what I'm saying? Yeah, well, that's I don't understand what you're saying half the time. I don't understand why you're saying it. That's the more important point. I don't understand your obsession with, minutia that, yes, is going to take time to explain because it has to do with deep, deep, deep layers, but it's very minutia layers. It's like the difference between, again, the little Einstein points of, this huge pile of math to do one tiny little error in Mercury's orbit, when Newton's math does 99% of everything perfectly fine. So, and it's this huge volume of correctness. And it's so correct that you could use Newton to go to the moon and back, no problem. You don't need Einstein's corrections. You'll do just fine with just using Newton. And here you are arguing about this little minutia bits that I'm not saying aren't true. I'm just saying they're going to take a lot of explanation because they have to do with this complex question of, well, how come this force goes this way and this thing is spinning? How is that an equal and opposite reaction? Yeah, it's there, but it's going to take a lot of work to explain why it's there. And that's the stuff you're obsessed about. So I'm giving you this huge difference between their explanation of reality and my explanation. I'm giving you a unification theory, an explanation of magnetism, an explanation of physical explanation of gravity, all this stuff. And here you are obsessing about these minutia points and implying that somehow I'm not prepared to explain it when I'm prepared to explain it, but it's going to take time. You have to do a whole video on the subject. And I've done that. And then you're still not satisfied. I think there's so many electrons that they don't split up in 3 degrees nicely, right? Well, of course, I just said, I don't know, I've said to you right in this video that the electrons always balance the pressure between them. So you can't have 2 electrons that are 5 inches apart and 2 electrons that are 2 inches apart. They'll always have to average the distances between them, so the pressure is always even between the electrons. So every electron will always be under the same pressure if the electrons are mechanically connected. They'll always seek common pressure. So every electron is going to be under a common pressure. And the point is that, yes, no matter where you hit them, they'll always rebound and they'll always create a reaction. They'll create a 3-degree shift in the momentum of the photon that hits them. I'm just saying there's just the general rule. I mean, you either can understand it or you don't understand it. It explains why there's a pattern and why there's an angle called sine theta in the math. And that's what the angle is a reflection of, is a combination of the frequency of the light, that is the force that hits them, and the tension of the electrons. And those two combine to create a sine theta, a general angle that can be multiplied 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 by any number. I think there's so many electrons that they don't split up in 3 degrees nicely, right? No, I'm still not wrong. It is hard to explain. I would need to draw. Can you draw it? Well, I'm not doing it now, no. I don't know what's so complicated. I'm just saying there's an electron here, there's an electron here, here. The photon goes through, it can hit none of them, or it can hit one and then hit another one and then hit another one and hit another one. It's just a matter of odds. Most of the photons go through and never hit anything. All right. The number that go all the way to the right or all the way to the left is minuscule compared to the number of photons that go straight through. So there's not like there's even numbers. No, there's a lot less that are doing the big angle and a lot more that are doing the straight line. So what's so hard to understand? Okay, just answer this. Does Earth have an acceleration vector in a specific direction? So you're just going to keep doing this to me. I've explained before how everything's a least. So even the Earth's rotation, it's the orbit. It isn't really moving in a curved line. It's moving in little facets, little straight lines. And so its real motion is never in the direction that it actually ends up the net direction. It gets to the net direction by moving a lot of other directions before it gets to the net direction. Just like acceleration takes time for something to speed up, it takes time for motion vectors to be added up. So at one moment in time, yes, it has an acceleration vector, but that one moment is a Planck constant small. All right. It's only moving in one specific vector direction for such a tiny amount of time that you can't say it has a direction vector. Its acceleration is always going to be a combination of a bunch of motions that will add up to this. But they're not made of this. They're not made of a bunch of laser beams going straight up. They're made of a bunch of motions that have a portion of their motion in the direction that's this way. And so the net motion is this way, but the motion that's made out of is made out of a bunch of motions that aren't this way. All right. Yes, but are you talking about electrons only in one atom? I've explained before. It's not in the atom. These are electrons on the surface that are they know there's a proton over there, and they're sort of saying, I'm attracted to protons, so I'm going to hang around this atom. But they're not part of the molecular structure of the atom. They're a free electron. They're charge, essentially. The wall is made up of countless atoms. So again, they're not hitting the wall. They're hitting the space between the material atoms. Yes, there's probably some that are going through atoms right on the surface, but obviously those are only very few that go through atoms. Most of them are just going through the electrons that pile up on the surface of materials. Oh, shit. I know you think I'm stupid. No, I don't think you're stupid. I think you're annoying because I'm a woman. No, I don't think you're stupid because you're a woman. I think you're stupid because, yeah, you play with dolls a little too much and did some other bullshit that wasted your brain space. But I actually do know what you're saying. Well, you are. I wish you, well, whatever. It's okay. You can use your acronym, whatever your whatever that is. There's a word for that, right? Twitter speech or whatever. I can know you, yeah, cause yes. It's physics, and that's the trick of this, right? I mean, I've been immersed in it for years now. And so all of it is like, yeah, I already seen that, already done that. It's all so obvious to me that it gets a little tedious to say, oh, wait a minute, I have to go back all the way to the beginning and try to explain this to somebody who has absolutely no exposure to the inverse square law. And they have no exposure to net forces or vectors or rays or this or, and yeah, so that gets a little bit tedious. because I have to remember, oh, I'm talking to somebody who knows nothing about physics. That's why I kind of want to have a conversation with somebody who actually knows some physics. And then when I have this argument, I can argue without having to go back to square one and explain, what a radial force would be. Yes, I understand you watch them now, but maybe you didn't watch enough of them, or I don't know. I mean, you should have gotten this two slit thing already. I did lots of videos about it. I mean, the simplest point is there's nothing in the math called wave. There's no wave factor in the math. There's just an angle that the light or the whatever moves at, the sine theta. That's just an angle, an algebraic angle. And so there's nothing wave. There's no necessity to assume it has to be a wave when it's just an angle. And such. Anyway, how long we've been in here? Probably getting to be time to go. Give it a few more minutes, maybe, or something. Let's see, what time is it? I wish I knew which thing to open. No, I didn't want to do that. It's always dangerous because I don't want the frickin' screen to freeze again.
I didn't such.
Didn't mean to do that. Ooh, that's dangerous too. Yeah. Where's the damn frickin' stupid window? There's a main window here somewhere. I'm not finding it. Come on, main window, where are you? Can't be this one. Not this one. Oh, there it is. It's just hiding. 13 viewers. Wow, way down. Well, it's way late, I guess. That's part of the problem. It's even late in California now. So, yeah, it's too early for well, it's not too early. Should have some Europeans by now, but guess not because they're all too stupid. Yeah, Europeans are dumb. Fucking Europeans. Stupid douchebags. Anyway, okay, yeah, we'll give it a couple more seconds. Good night, love. Yeah, well, just keep doing that love thing. You're really not going to charm me. And I know you think it's gay, but I really recommend you try Oxy Coconut. No, I don't think I'll do that. Yeah, Oxy Coconut. It's just too stupid. You think they call it something Oxy Nut or something. Cocoa Oxy Nut or something. Probably not a good idea to put oxidizers on your head. So I think it's probably a bad idea. Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think so. All right, you admit there can be an average net direction going this way. It's clear that's what I'm referring to. An average net direction. Yes. Well, I'm just saying the only thing that can do the averaging, though, is something with a center of gravity. So I'm just saying, you know, I don't know. I don't know what else that you're still going to argue that there's some sort of aberration problem here. Isn't that what you're leading to, right? You're still arguing that aberration means the force won't be affecting the place it needs to affect. And I thought I've attempted to explain as best I can that, yeah, it will, because the force is going to be converted to anything in that direction. And so there's no aberration problem, because even if you're going very fast, the gravity is shooting this way. It's shooting in the direction that you're heading. It's already going that way. And that's why there's an inverse square law, is because the force is being spread over both of those dimensions. That's what the inverse, that's why it's 4 times weaker. That's why it gets so weak, is because of the fact that the force is spread. And that if it would be 100% if it was going back and forth, there wouldn't be any inverse square law. It would be 100, it would be the same strength no matter how far away I put the Earth. It would be exactly the same strength of gravity if it was a one-on-one relationship. The fact is that it's being spread on those 2 dimensions means that the Earth is only being affected by one tiny portion of the gravity it creates, in effect. But I argue that there is not, but I argue that that's not what the word refers to. It's something slightly different. So I mean, I'm just going by the Wikipedia description when they use aberration as some reason why something can't be something. I'm just saying it's always because they think the force is by some 1/1. They think it's a force that's 100% when it's not. And that's obvious. What gravity is clearly not a 100% force. If you had a real physicist, do you think the conversation would be any different? Well, I think it would be, in the sense that at least we would isolate what he claims to be some sort of problem. And if this was all he was worried about as a problem, then I would just go, bogus. I would just say something like the Earth and the Sun are not 2 electrons. So yeah, they're not playing exactly the same game as, I mean, part of them are. Again, like I said, if you really look at what's really happening, that's part of the equation, is what's happening to electrons and protons. So again, that's the deeper thing. But you don't need to go deeper to understand how this explains, aberration essentially explains why there's an inverse square law. I mean, what I want a physicist to do is answer my question. So again, you're not even getting that part. I want the physicist to explain why the 2-slit experiment performed as Young did it, which doesn't illustrate any of the complex features of the interference pattern. That is, it doesn't illustrate the pattern inside of a pattern. The Young experiment was a crude piece of nothing. Why that was a remarkable experiment in light of Newton's rings. How is Newton's rings nothing and the 2-slit experiment something? Why was the Young experiment at all remarkable if physicists were paying attention? Just explain to me how physics could have been paying attention if they thought this was remarkable when Newton had already discovered the single slit did the same thing. Because if we can't get past this issue and get miscommunication, it's probably hopeless. Well, again, I don't think that's about this issue. I frankly just, again, I'm just saying, if I'm going to have a conversation with a real physicist and he's going to get lost in these kind of minutia, when I'm presenting a unification theory that explains how magnets work, does all of this other stuff, and he wants to get into a minutia conversation about how direct or indirect the force of gravity manifests, I mean, it's just a silly conversation. So I'm just saying, if that's what the physicist is going to do, then yes, it won't go anywhere, because in my opinion, it's not dealing with any of the subjects that are important. Let's see. Again, I'd say it's all on you. I mean, I've made the explanation. I've given you the reason why aberration is irrelevant, and you're just going to keep saying somehow it's still relevant. Like I said, no one is saying the gravity is like a beam or planets are like two electrons. Well, again, you're saying is somehow it matters that the force is somehow not going to be able to get to the Earth. And I've already explained how, yeah, it is, because the force is being radiated in every direction the Earth is moving. Well, that's your commentary. I think it's clear. I've seen physicists' conversations. I think I can understand what they're capable of, and I think they're going to be more capable of staying on the subject. I mean, look, I'm going to just point out something obvious. Well, how does a gravity lens? Why is every lens that's ever drawn that's supposed to be a gravity lens? Why do they always draw the wrong kind of lens? Because gravity is a concave lens, not a convex lens. Why do they always draw the wrong lens? I want those answers. Well, first off, I don't think I'll have to be communicating through comments with a physicist. The idea would be to talk live to a physicist. So I think right away there's going to be more politeness than I get from your comments. And so I don't think there's going to be nearly as much antagonism. And so I don't think that's going to be a problem either. And again, I'll just be able to, if I got the guy live, I'll just be able to keep beating him over the head with the questions that aren't answered. If your theory is so perfect, why is it so flawed? Yeah. Okay, if you put an object to the side of the lensing objects, wouldn't the top ray get bent down and the bottom ray get bent up? Wouldn't that stretch the image? Again, the point is the gravity is strongest here in the middle, which means the most bending happens here in the middle. The most bending. So if you have an object out here, so if you have an object over here and you're lensing it through this lens, how could you create an Einstein ring, for example? Can't be done. And your image can't be rendered because you don't have bending in the right direction. You don't have any focus. A concave lens doesn't create a focus. There's no focus. You can't get light from two different places coming at you. A convex lens doesn't produce that. I mean, concave lens. It can't collect light at two distant locations. And then, so even if you take the light coming at one portion, the light that's closer is going to get bent more, and that's the light that needs to be bent less. So the light coming in here needs to be bent less, then the light out here needs to be bent more. And exactly the opposite is going to take place in the convex lens. It's going to bend the light here less, and it's going to bend the light here more. So it's going to bend the light. There's no way you could ever create a focus. It won't bend the two rays to meet each other. So I could never see an object that had a left and right side because there'd be no way to do it, because the left side will be bent too much and the right side will be bent too little. Well, yeah, well, the arrangement, like I said, it doesn't really matter because you're still, all the lensing images have lenses where you can see part of the galaxy or some portion of the galaxy. So they do have right and left. And as I've just pointed out, the right and left is going to be destroyed. It doesn't matter where I locate it back here, it's still not going to focus here. So there's no focus. And that's the real problem. Without a focus, you're not going to be able to get these light rays aren't going to come to the same location. They're going to go the wrong ways. They're going to start diverging. So they're going to be close here, and they're going to far away at my eye. They're going to be diverging as they head for me rather than converging. It won't converge the light. It'll do exactly the opposite. It'll diverge the light. So I can never focus on any object through a convex lens. I mean, a concave lens. Ooh, sorry. All right. Yes, it depends on the arrangement. If only I could draw it right. You said it already. You said it already. Yeah, no, you're not going to be able to draw your way out of it. If you could draw your way out of it, then they would be drawing the convex lens, I mean, the concave lens, because it would somehow make sense. And it just can't make sense. Both of us agree that the points are scrambled. Well, it's more than scrambled. They're not converging to my eye. They're not going to create a focus. Without a focus, there's nothing. There's no lensing without a focus. And certainly not consistent with the lensing images, because they're, as I'm pointing out, they're clearly, you see objects that have a left and right size. You even see round objects that still have their round shape. They wouldn't maintain a round shape in a concave lens. When it comes to optics, we have a point on the object. Light comes off of it, rays of light come out, and then these rays hit the eye, and those rays are refocused to a point. That's how an image is sharp. No. Yeah, well, I'm just saying, but you're collecting, again, the whole point of the lens is that it's taking light that's diverging and making it back into light that converges. So you can't do that with the wrong shape of the lens. The lens has to be doing this thing. These lines have to be parallel. So from the center of the lens going out, these lines have to be parallel in the amount of bending. And the exact opposite is going to happen with the wrong shaped lens. The light is going to bend too little here, and it's going to bend too much here. So it's creating divergence rather than convergence. We're talking about, you keep saying what we're talking about. I mean, I can't make it any clearer. You're trying to say that these two lenses do the same thing, that I can put a concave lens on the end of a telescope and it'll make it so I can see the craters on the moon. It won't work. It won't do the job. It can't be made to do the job. You have to have the right shaped lens. And a gravity lens is the wrong shape for converging to a focus. When talking about focusing, we're talking about focusing points. But the amount of rays from a point on a galaxy to a point on my eye telescope is very little. But again, they're very diverging beams, even the ones that are coming just to one part of the lens, right over here, right? The little piece of the lens way over here. Even the ones coming to that little piece of a giant galactic lens are diverging rays. And those diverging rays need to be bent proportionally. That is, the outside one has to be bent more, and the inside one has to be bent less than the outside one, obviously, for those two rays to converge. The gravity lens, the real lens, is going to bend them exactly the wrong way. Okay, the one on the outside is going to be bent too much, and the one on the inside is going to be bent too little. turn that around. The one on the outside is bent too little, and the one on the inside is bent too much. But the amount of rays from a point on a galaxy to a point in my eye telescope is very little. BC, the galaxy is very far away. Again, it doesn't matter. It's the wrong shaped lens. Again, you just keep arguing as if somehow there's some mechanism you have where you can make the wrong shaped lens collect light and move it to a focus. It can't collect it and converge it. It's not a collect light and converge it lens. It's a collect light and spread it lens. It's doing exactly the opposite thing. Oh, I just switched topics somehow. How did I do that? You just switched subtopics. Amazing. How did I do that? I mean, where was the topic anything but the lens being the wrong shape? And how you're just ignoring it and keep pretending somehow it's the right shape. Just amazing. Use a lens that spreads light that somehow will make you see better. No, it won't make you see better. See, if a real physicist did that, just said, I just switched subtopics, I'd be like, no, you're just weaseled out of this conversation. I just made this as clear. The whole subject's been one subject. The lens is the wrong shape. That's the subject. Where did I go off that subject in this conversation anywhere? Where did I, in any place, talk about anything other than the fact that the lens is the wrong shape? I mean, people are fooled because, yeah, lenses fool you, right? The big thick part looks like, oh, that's doing all the work, this big thick part. The little thin part, that doesn't do shit. So, I mean, people get deceived by looking at this and thinking, oh, yeah, the middle part's doing all the bending. No, that's the part doing no bending. It's the little thin edge that's doing all the bending. The slope of the lens is all that matters. The surface is what diffracts the light. The slope of the surface. Well, again, focusing with one lens is not a complex subject. We're talking about a one lens focus. I'm just saying, explain to me how a concave lens a gigantic one, focuses. How does the concave lens focus light? Because it doesn't do that. Let me see if the lens type has a name. Well, I'm just saying the difference between this convex lens, right? That's a convex lens, a standard lens. And the other is a concave lens, is the reciprocal. And that's what the gravity lens is. This is the reciprocal lens. The lens through isn't concave or nor convex. I think both of us agree. I don't know what that means. I don't know. It'd be nice if we agreed about something, but I don't think we do. The point is a gravity lens does not do what the traditional optical lens does, which is bend the light on the outside the most and bend the light in the middle the least. That's not what the gravity lens does. So the point is that it can't collect divergent beams and focus them because it's not the right shape. It bends the light that needs to be bent the most, the least, and bends the light that needs to be bent the least, the most. I mean, I can't make it any clearer than that. It does exactly the opposite of what it needs to do to converge diverging light. The light's diverging coming from the distant star. It needs to be reconverged. And that's not what the backward lens will do. You should just concede that, yes, this is something they should have talked about somewhere. Somebody should have pointed out that gravity lenses are the opposite of what we consider to be optical focusing lenses. Magnifying lenses. I mean, gravitational lensing is essentially called magnification, right? I mean, we can see things far away because we're magnifying them in the giant lens. So let's understand, if the lens isn't a magnifying lens, then that's not what it's going to be able to do. Well, anyway, you think about it and attempt to reply and all the rest of it and blah, blah, blah. Thank you for being more reasonable. Yeah. Appreciate it. And such. So anyway, until next time, and so forth and whatnot. And yeah, whatever. Thank you to the participants, even though, you know, it is a bit hostile here. Appreciate the contribution, except for it's mostly trolly and shitty. But anyway, it's better than nothing. Well, it's more than nothing. It's really better or not. So anyway, so I'll keep doing this until I'll stop doing this. Anyway, I think is, you know, like I said, I think the idea of drawing, I'll have the camera for drawing next time. And, you know, I just didn't want to, just because of the one failure, you know, because the Linux did crash, I didn't want to push it, but I'll try pushing it again. Because I didn't even have the drawing camera on when it crashed, so it really wasn't the problem. I think it was just sometimes Linux is a little sensitive. If you try to double click something or do something, it sometimes fucks it up. And so you have to be a little bit conscious of that. It might just be because I have it set for single click, you know, instead of double clicks. So maybe that's screwing it up. It's always a subtle failure, you know, and they're not always easy to find, but it's always something really stupid. Like one program is a little buggy, and so if you avoid that one program, everything's okay. But, you know, otherwise it's been running quite well. I mean, I don't know how many tabs I have open in Firefox, but, you know, it's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22. Yeah, I got 25 tabs open in Firefox, plus Chrome running, plus the camera running, and I'm in a live room. So that is, it's pretty good that it's, it works. Very good. I really have to do some Linux videos. Oh, I got so much to do. They're talking about selling the property I live on again. So I have to go through this whole bullshit of trying to figure out some way to save myself. Anyway, it's just so much shit to do. Frankly, it's way too many jobs for one person. So where was I? Stupid little white flies are eating my garden. This bastard chipmunk is digging up my plants. Fuckers. Anyway, yeah. And my hair is straggly. It was always a little straggly, so it doesn't. Anyway, I gotta find the window. Get out of here. The get out of here window. Yay. To do some kind of something. To do something. Thin, very tall. Yeah, this'll crash the computer now. It's playing silly games. All right, anyway. Enough of that crap. Till next time and such, so forth and whatnot.